Hello there! Coming up in the Saturday Night Showdown, Trump is back. It's the best sequel since Terminator 2, and he loves Britain. But Starmer is doing everything he can to terminate a trade deal with Trump. Labour spurned Nigel Farage's offer to act as a trade envoy, and our Foreign Secretary, David Lammy, has called Trump a woman-hating, racist, neo-Nazi sympathising sociopath. Not very diplomatic language, David. I wouldn't trust Labour to run to the shops to buy me a banana, never mind run the country. And speaking of government waste, the HS2 project is spending £100 million on one little mesh tunnel to protect a bat colony from trains. How can the government be squeezing us for taxes and spending money like a drunk P. Diddy in the Boots baby oil section? It's batshit crazy. And have you seen Gary Barlow's massive son? Gary must have put him in a grow bag. Here he is towering over his dad. You might be wondering how he got so tall when his parents are hobbits. Well, we've got the science behind it, and no, it's not a khaki party with the Harlem Globetrotters. Plus, we've got how the Amish are Trump's secret weapon, how anti-Semitic pogroms have returned to Britain, Keir Starmer making more enemies, and Just Stop Oil's pals plan to disrupt remembrance services tomorrow. This is your Saturday Night Showdown. And discussing all tonight's topics with me are my brilliant panel. Joining me tonight are comedian and producer Ben Adams and the broadcaster, lawyer, futurist and children's entertainer Andrew Eborn. Look at him there, bringing a bit of Vegas. He's available for Christmas parties, bar mitzvahs, Ramadan. He'll do anything for money. Welcome to the Saturday Night Showdown. Now, Trump won the election bigly. You might have heard the Liberals crying over it. I haven't watched a man beat a woman that brutally since the Olympics. There's Imani Khalif with some questions over his or her birth sex going on right now. Lefties around the world were left in tears as they discovered that gender ideology, mass immigration and communism aren't as popular as their diversity coordinator told them they were. Honestly, if your fetish is ugly people crying, you must have had a great week. But what's it going to mean for Britain? Labour are doing everything they can to alienate and antagonise Trump. But Trump clearly loves Britain. Have a listen to this.
This is with Queen Elizabeth. Right here, who was fantastic, by the way. These images, I mean, who has images like this? And these were relationships, too. Look, here's now the king. Here's Charles with the guard. And this is the Queen Elizabeth. It's a piece of history at the highest level. Look, it's Charles. So beautiful. And they'll see the most beautiful places in the world. There are no places like this.
With the love for Britain that Trump clearly has, we could obviously get amazing post-Brexit trade deals with America, which we desperately need right now to bring down the cost of food for British people and increase Britain's export market to bring some money into this country. Nigel Farage offered to build bridges by acting as an envoy to Trump, who he's forged a bond with. Unfortunately, Keir Starmer's Labour Party have snubbed the offer. Maybe Keir Starmer just doesn't like the fact that Trump described Farage as the big winner of the last election in the UK. The Labour Party hate Trump almost as much as they hate capitalism. They'll happily cut their nose off to spite their face. Our Foreign Secretary, David Lammy, who should be leading the diplomacy with America, has described Trump as a tyrant, as a racist KKK sympathiser, and as a woman-hating neo-Nazi sympathising sociopath. Lovely stuff, David. Angela Rayner described Trump as a buffoon, which seems quite nice in comparison. Many people in the Trump administration are appalled that the British government locks up its own citizens for things such as sharing memes or criticising the government with hurty words on placards. Donald Trump, whose mother was Scottish, doesn't like to see British people treated like this. What's hilarious is that David Lammy congratulated Trump on his victory and said that he looked forward to working with him. So either David Lammy was lying when he called Trump a Nazi, or David Lammy is a Nazi collaborator and KKK sympathiser himself. Either way, David Lammy is a threat to this country and should resign. Now, I'm joined tonight by Ben Adams and Andrew Eborn. I've got to point out that, David Lammy, he might have said that stuff when he was younger. He was young, he was stupid, but I'm sure he's grown tone as a person. Now as Foreign Secretary, he's been so dignified and he's trying to build bridges.
And he says, let's just move on, is what he said in his latest interview.
Yeah.
But don't
easy
forget...
to say when you
easy to say. You've got to do that sort of stuff. I love the fact that he's now sympathising with the Nazi sympathisers. Fantastic stuff. Don't forget J.D. Vance, who is now going to be Vice President, the youngest ever since Nixon, turned around and sort of said that similar sort of thing. He compared Trump to Adolf Hitler in 2016, and he also called him an idiot and so on and so forth. What J.D. Vance did, it just sounds like a cheap department store, doesn't it, J.D. Vance? What he turned around and did, he said it was actually the media who misrepresented him. When Trump was president, I totally evaluated the guy, and that's what David Lammy should do. I loved, however, PMQs, where Kemi Badenoch, the new thing, sort of asked Starmer, is he going to apologise, or has Lammy apologised? And they waffled and said, all that. So we had dinner with him, we had a McDonald's, you know.
Yeah, why doesn't he just apologise?
Just say sorry.
Keir Starmer said, I had a dinner with them. But things seem to have soured since then. So maybe having dinner with them was a bad idea. Maybe at that dinner, Trump decided he hates Keir Starmer.
Absolutely. Who wouldn't? Who wouldn't hate Keir Starmer? I think David Lammy is, like you say, when he was younger, he was an idiot. Well, I think he's still an idiot, to be honest. I think he just needs to resign. I think he needs to resign. Keir Starmer needs to resign. Rachel Reeves, just get rid of all of them.
Off they all go.
I think this is a nice little, let's wipe the slate clean.
Are you just after a job?
Yes.
I think you'll be very good.
I could be the leader of Labour. Yes, I could be the leader of Labour.
They do need a leader.
More money for nurses.
Hey.
There you go.
We've seen, everybody's going to applaud that. We've seen all these accusations of racism, KKK sympathising, neo-Nazi sympathising. I mean, they get thrown around like confetti, but this kind of reveals that they obviously don't mean anything. As soon as Trump was elected, everybody stopped calling him Hitler.
It was so pathetic to see David Lammy go, oh, please, sir, I'm so sorry, sir, I'm so sorry. Oh, no, absolutely. It just showed them exactly who they are.
The crazy thing about politics is that people always forget that history repeats itself because people don't learn the lessons from history. Everything you say, every picture that you ever been every person you've been photographed with is going to come back to haunt you.
Yeah.
So if you're in politics, don't say anything bad about people.
Just don't say anything.
And never have your photo taken.
Never have your photo taken with Leo or whatever you work on.
What's interesting, you see people like Jeffrey Epstein, they always have millions of photos taken.
Always
do.
Jimmy Savile as well. They're always next to rich and powerful people.
Epstein has the one with the donkey. I remember seeing that one.
If I was at a party where I was doing some really illegal, horrible things, the last thing I would do is go, let's get a photo. Come on.
Selfie
Come on.
now.
Who's got the Polaroid? Who's got the Polaroid? But how did Trump pull off such a shock victory?
Well, what am I going to say then?
Trump had the novel idea of not being an open borders gender lunatic who openly hates his country. Who knows how it makes somebody electable? And his secret weapon was the Amish. The Amish traditionally shun elections in the wider world around them. Their attitude is, don't mess with us and we won't mess with you. But somebody messed with them. Somebody from the government. Government agents raided an Amish farm earlier this year in a row over unpasteurised milk that left the Amish community furious. Raw milk is an Amish staple. They don't need your fancy newfangled heat treatment technology, Monsieur Pasteur. And it seems to work for the Amish. They look way healthier than your average fat-bottomed government seat polisher. Unfortunately, there's not much footage of the raid, as Amish people tend not to have camera phones. But the government stormed a farm, seizing papers and property, just because the Amish were selling organic food to their local community. Now, Trump's message of smaller government resonated with the Amish community, and it probably helped that he's appointing RFK Jr. to his health administration. RFK is an advocate of organic food and raw milk. And this guy, Scott Pressler, took time out from his job protecting a magical amulet in Lord of the Rings to register Amish voters, and he got 180,000 Amish voters signed up for the Republicans, many of them in the swing state of Pennsylvania. By the way, if you want some good news, the Amish fertility rate is very high, at around 7 children per woman. So in a few generations, they'll be the largest demographic group in the USA. And after a couple of centuries, everyone in the world is going to be Amish, including you, which is great news. But I mean, we've seen government overreach. It's really unpopular. We saw it when they killed the squirrel. They sent a SWAT team round to boot a door in and execute the squirrel. We're seeing it with the Amish. I mean, I think the right always promise, they don't always deliver, but they promise a smaller government that's going to intrude less on people's lives.
And I think that's right. And I love their 1 horsepower vehicle, which we saw, which was glorious. There they are for climate change, coming up to COP 4027. Always glorious. No, Trump was brilliant. What I love, I've just come back from Cannes, as you know, and Mark Burnett, Brett, who was The Apprentice. What they said, the variety guy there, Trump is basically being modelled on The Apprentice. I found out he was originally going to run against, I think it was Obama.
Right.
But NBC offered him so many millions to do The Apprentice again that he didn't. It was true. And what happened, he basically moulded himself on that sort of thing.
No way. And of course he went on to defeat Hillary, and I mean, he would have. I don't think he would have beaten Obama. Certainly not if he was running so quickly. What's also interesting is if he'd won again in 2020, if he'd beaten Joe Biden, he wouldn't have had control of the Senate and the House. Now he's got a full sweep, and he's got way more power, and he knows exactly what he's going to do.
I was saying this today. I was saying how he really is the most powerful man in the world, and if he was the awful person that the left think he is, I'd be very scared right now. But he's not. And I think it's great that he's got that. And with the Amish, first off, I don't know how they found out there was an election. I don't know how they knew that it was going on or how to vote. But fair play. I think it's great. And when politics affects normal people and people like that who really do live so simply, when it affects that, they can't help but get involved. And I just think it just shows how great he is and how real he is.
Yeah, and also I think the people on his team, like Elon Musk.
Yes.
So he's gonna oversee the department overseeing government efficiency.
Yeah, absolutely. And he's brilliant. As you know, Errol Musk, who's Elon's father, is on the Andrew Eborn show every day. And so I talk to him about that.
You every week.
I do. I just tune in, Andrew Eborn, that sort of stuff. But Errol is brilliant. And basically, Elon is the de facto US president. The power that he wields as a result of controlling that sort of stuff. So Trump was absolutely fantastic. What I also love, just not to disappoint the people around the world who were hoping that a POC, a person of colour, would be elected. Well, that colour is there. Orange is the new black. So you can work on that basis.
And also, Elon Musk is an African American.
There you go.
Is he really?
He was born in South Africa.
He was.
The first African American. I don't know what Elon Musk is. Sort of
that sort of stuff. It's going to be brilliant. I love it.
Anyway, not everyone was happy about the election result. Social media was a constant stream of lefties filming themselves crying. It was wonderful to see, even if it was obviously performative and attention-seeking. I mean, look at this one. They got so worked up, she ended up hurting herself. Oh, my God. Oh, my God, that's going to need a trip to the dentist. Guardian journalists were offered therapy to help them deal with the election of a politician in a completely different country. Remember when journalists were tough and would write reports while being shot at in war zones, or they'd go undercover in criminal gangs to get a scoop? Well, these days, they can't even watch their own news without needing to cry on a couch about it. And universities went even further than the Guardian. Top universities in America, such as Harvard and the University of Pennsylvania, offered students crayons, Lego and cookies with milk to help them come to terms with the election result. But what if they stand on the Lego? They'll need a year having their boo-boo kissed better to recover from the pain. And what happens if they shove the crayons up their nose? I don't see how treating supposedly elite students like babies is going to help prepare them for the outside world, which is full of nasty people like Ben here.
I'm very nasty. And I'll tell you how nasty I am. With the Guardian thing, it's first off, I thought they needed therapy way before all.
Paediatricians, they need paediatricians.
Therapy.
Absolutely.
But what annoys me is that they can write these articles about how to cope with trauma, and they're getting paid so much money.
Yeah.
And then someone who's working a real job has to read that and go, how are people still paying these absolute nutcases? It drives me mad. And yeah, they should be in therapy forever. Get rid of them.
Absolutely. And you're right, all the paediatricians will be there sort of ready for them like the other child doctors. It's, however, the biggest offence ever to 74.3 million Americans who voted for Trump. So to turn around and say, we're all dressed in black, this is the Armageddon and everything else, Starmageddon, you work on that sort of... It's an insult. This is democracy. They worked on that sort of basis. That's the result, fair and square. Nobody's complaining about it this time. And to his credit, and nobody ever says this, but to Joe Biden's credit, he turned around and did the right thing. He got the words right, and he said, look, I'm going to make sure there's a smooth transition. The people have voted. So for the Guardian journalists to turn around and say, we're going to dress in black, it's the end of the world, it's an insult to 74.3 million people.
I think Joe Biden was secretly delighted that women who unseated him lost. But also it's ridiculous that the Guardian were calling people, or left-wing people were calling the Trump and his supporters extremists, because more than 50% of the people can't be extremists. extreme. That's not how extremes work.
And then
Exactly.
look at them. Look at that. They're completely extreme. They're crying their eyes out, going, "He was a convicted felon." Like, calm.
Only through
That was an American accent. That was very good.
Coming up, we will assess the week's winners and losers in Kearse or Blessed. This week, we've got protests on Armistice Day, a pogrom in Amsterdam, and HS2 being a bottomless money pit as usual. Stay tuned for that. It's now time to go through the winners and losers of the week. But first, a mention for Marcel Myrick, who's tweeted from the States.
Hey.
I think he's enjoying the show. He sent us a picture of each one of us, unless he's plotting our assassination, which hopefully isn't. Anyway, moving on. An undercover investigation, by the Daily Express has exposed that a pro-Palestinian group is planning highly organised disruption on a nationwide level tomorrow in 5 British cities during Armistice Day. Actually, not tomorrow, on Monday's Armistice Day celebrations. If you didn't hate this group enough already, they're an offshoot of Just Stop Oil. In a secret meeting on Saturday, November the 2nd, it's been reported that they met with Just Stop Oil at a members-only central London bar for an exclusive event to listen to speeches and discuss policy while vegan food and alcohol were served.
Oh, terrible.
Cauliflower burgers and booze. I bet they all got kebabs on the way home. These perfumed ponces don't seem to realise that the reason that they can swan about eating vegan food and picking pronouns is because of the sacrifice of the brave men and women who gave their lives, their bodies and their minds to protect our liberty. Instead of showing gratitude, they're going to try and sully events that give respect to those men and women. I wish I could go back in time and tell those brave men and women who spilled their blood for Britain not to bother. Look what's happened to their country. What on earth did they fight for? Now, I've got to ask as well, why are they always posh? It's always posh kids.
Always
Just
posh
Stop
people.
Oil,
Yeah.
or these ones who are, I think there's some sort of Palestine, pro-Palestine group, so of course they want to somehow drum up support by insulting our veterans, which I don't know how that's going to get.
Well, they
anybody
just don't
inside.
care. They're like, well, the people that fought in World War II were working class, so we don't really mind. It drives me mad. And the fact that they wanted to do this on Armistice Day is just... They've picked the worst day. There's going to be people there that are not going to have any of it. So, do you know what? Go for it. Go for it. Let's see what happens.
It's worse than it's absolutely sickening. Well, we're honouring those who fought for this country, fought for people's right to protest, that they want to disrupt it. But you're right about them always calling them posh. They turn around, in the relevant article, they talk about that he went to Upper Latimer's School or whatever, and they say it's £8,300 a term. It's not. It's 8,333 plus VAT because of Starmer. That's how it's worked on that sort of basis. No, it's an insult to the people who died for us.
I absolutely agree with you, but Ben's got a great point. A lot of the people who are going to be at these remembrance events are going to be veterans, and they're going to be very good at fighting and very physically fit, and if a bunch of
they're not going to do. And I don't know anybody who has converted to Just Stop Oil as a result of all their antics, whether it's throwing stuff over priceless art, disrupting major sporting events, or now insulting our heroes.
And
I think it's disgusting, and just stop.
It is, and the veterans are certainly not going to be looking at Keir Starmer when he comes up, because they're all going to turn their backs. So they'll be looking at whoever's causing trouble, and it's just, go for it. See what happens. That's what I say.
You're just going to turn people off, and you're probably going to get a punch in the face as well, which you quite deserve. Now, staying with a similar theme, people always ask, how could the Nazis happen? That's what people always ask. In 1930s Europe, Nazi mobs rounded up and beat Jews in pogroms. These pogroms have returned. On Thursday in Amsterdam, we saw Jews hunted by Muslim mobs, beaten in front of their children, forced to say "Free Palestine" and thrown on train tracks. It's a warning that we've got a warning that distressing images are about to be shown on the screen now. That's a horrific scene of a large mob of Muslim men beating a man and throwing him on some train tracks in Amsterdam. I mean, thank God it's Islamophobia Awareness Month, or someone might complain about it. Israeli football fans were in Amsterdam for a Europa League game with Dutch side Ajax. There was some usual football jeering from both sides, and some Palestinian flags were pulled down by Israeli football fans. Shouts and flag pulling, this is pretty standard behaviour for football lads. But Amsterdam, like most European cities, has a huge Muslim population. Mobs of men, believed to be of North African descent and who were unconnected to the football. The Dutch side, Ajax, is a Jewish team anyway. They hunted down not just Israeli football fans, but anyone they thought might be Jewish. People were beaten and forced to show their passports to prove that they weren't Jewish, just like the Gestapo used to do. Papers, please! What's worse is that people on the left seem to just make excuses for these Muslim mobs. Guardianistas, like Owen Jones, blamed the violence on the Jews, on the victims themselves. The far left have always marched shoulder to shoulder with Islamists. The mayor of Amsterdam is a member of the Green Party, and these mobs are the street militia of the left. Although the left would do well to remember what happened when they allied with Islamists in Iran in 1979. Once they'd overthrown the Shah of Iran, the socialists turned round to their Islamist comrades and said, "Oh, this is super. Where shall we build the queer vegan poetry cafes?" And the Islamists shot them. And Keir Starmer wants to bring through Islamophobia laws to protect Islamists from criticism. They told us import the third world to Europe. They said multiculturalism is going to be really super. Well, it's not working out that super for some of us. Now, I'm just amazed to see the left making excuses for anti-Semitism.
It is so disgusting. Another regular viewer is somebody called Louise Dankelin, who's in Cambridge, Massachusetts, who talked about her father suffering similar sort of things in Nazi Germany and that sort of stuff. It's absolutely disgusting. We should call it out. Yeah. Nobody should be living in fear on that sort of basis. Those scenes are disgusting. There's no humour in that at all. And it's absolutely right. We should condemn it.
Exactly. It's one of those things where you look at it and you go, how can someone have an opposing view to this? How can you look at this and go, oh yeah, but they were giving it some? And no. How can you even think that? And I didn't know what a pogrom was. A pogrom? I didn't know what it was until
it was a computer pogrom.
I thought it was the little things that you used to do at school. Pogs. But no, terrible. And you just think, well, obviously I've got this view and this is abhorrent and terrible. Yeah. And you just think,
we can see some of the footage on screen now.
It is appalling.
Big mobs chasing people through the city centre. But I do have to say there were some Israeli football fans were instigating or taking part in it at the start. But apparently it had been organised previously on Telegram and on some taxi driver apps as well. No, so they're using their taxi driver apps to organise, and say we're going to target Israelis and target Jews.
Sure. But that's the problem. As soon as they fair enough, okay, they're both giving it to each other, both sides doing with the football. I don't know much about football. But as soon as it becomes, OK, we're going to go and hunt Jews, and if you're a Jew, I'm going to be... And
if you look at the whole footage, actually, there are also people climbing up and ripping down Palestinian flags and so on and so forth. And some of those footage, what's happening, we're stirring up hatred. Yeah. Close to home, Josh, who regularly presents a programme called The Headline, is going to have us on soon, but he got beaten up on the way to a gig from here. And we should talk about these things. We need to cut out the rhetoric on that sort of stuff.
Based on his personality, though. Now, moving on, and also I've got to point out that Dutch football team isn't called Ajax; it's called Ajax. Apparently, Ajax is a laundry detergent fluid.
Ajax.
Anyway, reading on. Has there ever been a better example of government waste than this? As part of the HS2 rail project, our government is building a 1 kilometre long stretch of mesh tunnel to protect some bats from trains that apparently don't even pose a danger to bats. What's the cost of this needless, pointless stretch of mesh? £100 million. That's right, £100 million. For that amount of money, we could buy each bat its own castle in Transylvania. I mean, this is ridiculous. This shows why Donald Trump is completely right.
Let me tell you about this bat, however. It's the Bechstein bat. It's not just any old bat. It's the Bechstein bat. And this is what happens. You have to protect under the Wildlife Act of 1980. There are loads of them. They keep breeding because they're really happy. 1981, that's what's supposed to happen. But you're right, it is backshed, isn't it? You work on that sort of basis. The whole project is being populated with disaster. It's been a complete waste of money, and you're working on that sort of premise. And they sort of abandoned it, and then we were going to say we're going to get something super fast because you can save a nanosecond to get some of these important cities. They should have called it earlier. Focusing on the bats and the wildlife and that needs to be preserved is an important thing. And a friend of mine actually runs a company that basically does these searches for the crested newts and stuff like that. A company called Wagtail. Oses, Colin. You work on that sort of basis. But they do. They hunt out the bats to make sure that they're not endangered. They hunt out the special newts and so on and so forth. We need to protect the wildlife, but let's call out the waste of money, which is what this is.
We need to protect wildlife up to a value of 20 quid. £100 million.
I think we protect enough people that I can't stand.
You know what I mean?
Let's protect the bats.
Anyway, next on the Saturday Night Showdown, Gary Barlow's tall son, a child swearing like a sailor, and a psychic hippo. You won't want to miss that. See you in a moment. Now, the tall children of famous people have been in the news this week. Not just Baron Trump, who's seen towering over his father, who's pretty tall himself at 6'2". No, the one that raised the most eyebrows, though not up to his height, was Gary Barlow's son. This picture resurfaced. It was taken in 2023, I believe, and it led to some hilarious comments on the internet. Let's have a look at them. Here we have Gary Barlow manoeuvring one of his son's Hot Wheels. That's Gary Barlow driving a car. Next one is Gary Barlow holding his son's hand to cross the road. That's Gary Barlow with his hand in the air. Then we have an early photo of Gary Barlow teaching his son to tie his own shoelaces. That's Gary Barlow doing some sort of rope exercise there. Then we have Gary Barlow asking his son how his day at school was. That's Willem Dafoe staring up into the sky. Then we have Gary Barlow standing in front of his son's new cardigan. This is a good one, recognising the Pringle pattern. That's just Gary Barlow standing in front of a big Pringle pattern. Then we have Gary Barlow Gary Barlow handing his son a straw. Brilliant stuff. Then we have Gary Barlow Gary Barlow standing next to his son eating a croissant, or croissant if you're Scottish. Yes. I only found out it's pronounced croissant when I moved to England and became middle class. Anyway, Gary Barlow's son is actually only 6'2".
True.
That's not hugely tall. I mean, as a tall person, it's kind of annoying. You get all the questions. You're quite tall.
I'm taller than him.
I'm 6'2".
The trouble is, Gary's only 4'6". I mean, and that's the problem. It was actually 5'7" in some reports, but 5'9" in others. So you're working on that sort of basis.
On Tinder, it's 5'9".
Were you swiping left? I mean, what was this? You work on that sort of basis. No, the reality is this: his son is 6'2". It's all about comparisons, but the memes are brilliant. The internet comes alive when you have these sort of things. It's
always the funniest thing. The funniest things in the world are always what your friends share with you. These little jokes on the thing. Like, I watched Have I Got News For You the other day. Awful, terrible.
Yeah, compared to
this is hilarious. It's just people sharing, and it's funny. Good, funny stuff.
How tall are you? I mean, you're much taller than that. I'm taller than.
I'm 6'6".
Yeah, exactly. I'm 6'7".
So you're taller than his son.
But the science behind it, apparently, because people say, well, how can his parents be not particularly tall? They're both 5'7", I believe, and he's 6'2". So how can that happen? You know, has somebody slipped in some DNA somewhere? No, none of that happened. No. What can happen is height genes can skip a generation.
Sure. So how you reckon his grandparents were? So his grandparents were enormous. Is that right?
Something like that.
They were giants. Yeah, absolute giants.
We should have pictures of them. Track down those pictures before the end of the programme. We'll give you a credit. We've credited everybody today, aren't we? I love it. What I also love about Take That, it's all about Orange this week, isn't it? We've had Trump and so on and so forth. Jason Orange, come on.
Orange.
What happened to him? He left early, didn't he? Together with that other one, which did nothing afterwards. So
I don't know enough about Take That. Robbie Williams.
Yeah, there we go.
He did loads. He got hooked on drugs. He was
brilliant. I love Robbie. He's fantastic.
Yeah, I love Robbie.
The reality is, poor old Gary, really talented artist, but Daniel's 6'2" is not that big, and it's all about comparisons.
He'll just be at home going, I don't know why everyone's talking about.
Oh, you're much better at that than your American accent. Come on, you're very good.
Thank you.
Very good.
Now, there was a shocking scene in London last week as a so-called anti-fascist protester brought her kid along and taught her kid to scream profanities. Take a look at this.
Nazis. Yeah. All right. Would you like to elaborate?
I think he summed it up, really. Nazis.
And these are the people of kindness and tolerance. It looks like child abuse to me. And also, she seems to have stuck a jellyfish to the front of their faces. Little joke there for people listening on the radio. We had to blur their faces. But that's, a child swearing, calling people Nazis. And that was it. That was
but it's so wrong. And parents shouldn't do that. The kid probably knows nothing about that. It's going to haunt him for the rest of his life because that video will always get replayed now. And it is so wrong for the parents to do that. And I think it's funny to get them to swear. I mean, it's rubbish.
There should be
Absolute
a test.
Rubbish.
There should be a test before you have children. There should be a little test of like, will you do this? Will you dye your hair pink?
Yeah.
And if the answer is yes, no, you're not allowed children. You're going to dye your hair pink and blue. No. It's ridiculous.
Are you going to dress your child up like Mad Max and teach it swear words and tell it everybody's a Nazi? I mean, this is the thing, because this wasn't in opposition to a Nazi rally, even though, the far left describe any, this was, basically British patriots and some nationalists who are marching. It wasn't, we don't have a massive Nazi problem in the UK. We're the
Not a small one.
No. we're the country that beat the Nazis.
Yeah. And what she's doing is essentially what the Hitler Youth did. She's doing exactly the same thing. These are your views. You have to have.
And you also know, I mean, if you want to draw a crowd starter fight, P.T. Barnum always used to say that. You know, if you're going to get kids to say something inappropriate, it's going to go all over the place, even on this brilliant show here as a result of it. But what's going to happen? It's going to backfire. You shouldn't be doing that to your kids. It's unfair on them. It's going to ruin their lives accordingly. Stop doing it.
It's awful.
I'm not going to teach my kids that, left-wing people are evil or dehumanise them or anything like that.
I was going to say stay away from
I'll let my kid work it out.
Or teach them how to debate. It's OK having different opinions. People should voice opinions and get the child to explain why or whatever. Have a view, but give them a sort of balanced view. Don't prejudice them on that sort of basis. Kids are much clever. I've just come back from Japan, being all over the place. The kids there are so bright because you treat them...
they have to
But they teach them at an early age to think. And if you teach your kids to think and debate and so on and so forth, it is superb.
Yeah, I've seen Karate Kid. Also Trump, Trump got such a clean sweep with young people. Young people really swung to Trump. And I think it's because they see through all the nonsense of the ideology, all the gender.
People are much cleverer than we give them credit for. Let people think for themselves, present the evidence, let them come to their own educated
seems like whenever
decisions.
kids are forced, these views are forced upon them, they soon realise, this is all nonsense.
It's all nonsense.
My mum smells.
Moving on, this is something that isn't nonsense. This is Mu Deng, a lovable baby hippo who predicted Trump's win, something that supposed political expert Rory Stewart failed to do. This cheeky little chonka has become a hit with meme makers. Take a look at this.
We love Mu Deng. Incredible. Many people, in fact, many people, more than you can imagine, have said that we love Mu Deng.
I love it. Andrew, I love that the Democrats had a $1 billion media machine, a propaganda machine, and it was defeated by kids making memes with baby hippos.
It's absolutely glorious. But what I love about this donkey, what I love about this pygmy hippo is what it is. Called basically Mu Deng is what it's called, which in Thai means bouncing pork, which is not the best way of doing it. Right. If you actually see the footage and when they're predicting what it is, he's up against his mother, who's bizarrely called Jonah, because she looks like a whale, but they've got sex identity and that sort of stuff. But she pushes her way forward, goes for the Harris bit of food first. So this poor old Mu Deng can only get the Trump one. So they fixed it.
Are you saying that fat women go for Harris?
I saw a lot of hippos predict that Harris would win. A lot of hippos. Well, a lot of hippos.
Well, no, that was a much better answer. You're getting better as the show goes on. What I love is that Mu Deng's father is called Tony, of all the names.
Tony?
Just a regular name.
Tony Deng. Tony Deng. He was
from Hackney.
He was brought in. He was from Hackney. He was brought in for the weekend. What a weekend that was! And this is on the 10th of July. Mu Deng was born.
Right, and they're very deadly, apparently.
Oh no, they kill loads of people.
I don't know
they kill children. They can kill children.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's actually quite serious. It's actually quite.
Not Mu Deng though. He couldn't.
No. He's the greatest.
Maybe kill a
bouncing pork. Bouncing pork.
Anyway, next on the Saturday Night Showdown, Starmer is snubbed, and some Kamala supporters try to find some illegal migrants a home. Don't go anywhere. See you in a moment. Now, Donald Trump isn't the only international leader giving Keir Starmer the cold shoulder. Hungary's leader, Viktor Orban, didn't even bother to greet Keir Starmer at the European summit. Take a look at this.
Straight down.
So we saw European leaders like Zelensky, Meloni, and France's President Macron all getting a warm hug and a greeting from Viktor Orban. And then when Keir Starmer got there, he got nothing. It was like Eurovision Song Contest results night. I have a theory that leaders who love their country, such as Viktor Orban, are disgusted by Starmer because he locks up Brits. I mean, he doesn't show the same sort of love and nurturing for his people that Viktor Orban does.
Well, putting this story in context, Starmer was late. And
he was late as well.
So Zelensky had already started his speech. So the reason Viktor Orban, the great, and I like Viktor Orban because he basically is really a pro-peace and he goes around the world trying to sort that out. So Starmer was late. It's worse than Rishi Sunak leaving early, if you remember that sort of situation. So he was late. Zelensky had already started his speech. So Orban had already greeted everybody else. It wasn't a deliberate slub, but basically Labour sort of turned around and said, well, he'd already started. He was at a different somewhere else.
That sounds like Labour's excuses.
My alarm didn't go off. It went
so everyone was already in there, and then Starmer just turns up like, oh, where?
Absolutely.
I've heard this before. Zelensky's always talking the same stuff.
He wants more money.
He wants
enough
money,
already.
and we've given all our money to this bat tunnel.
Do you care about the bats, Zelensky?
Absolutely.
Although, I mean, it raises the point. I mean, with Trump coming into office, he's quite an isolationist. Although I guess Republicans tend to be more isolationist in opposition than they are when they're actually in power. But it looks like the taps, the money, the arms, the weaponry that's coming from America is going to be restricted a bit. So I think Europe needs to step up to the plate and start arming Ukraine ourselves instead of just sitting back and letting America.
It's not going to happen. The war is going to stop. And what the great thing about having Trump in, whatever your views are politically, he's probably more likely to make the world a more peaceful place.
Absolutely.
I was really encouraged.
You know why that is? It's because people are scared of him.
No, they are. They're
so scared.
They're generally scared. Putin came out and congratulated him. He did say they had a good conversation on that sort of basis. And so I reckon that we're going to get peace much quicker as a result, which is great news. The other thing which was interesting as well is that Elon Musk, his father's on my show all the time, by the way. Elon Musk, he was on the same call. This has just been revealed when Trump was talking to Zelensky.
It does make
Musk is there now, working on that sort of basis. Zelensky actually must be pretty scared because they're not going to keep throwing lots of money at him, and hopefully we'll find a peaceful solution very soon.
It does make me think, though, as soon as Trump got elected and all these leaders are coming in saying, oh, yeah, we want peace, peace, what was everyone else doing before Trump?
This is the thing. I mean, Biden wasn't planning for peace. The sort of strategy that Biden had, he wanted to weaken Russia militarily and economically.
Of course he did.
So he's dragging it out.
And it's the scandal of the weapons industries. The scandal of the weapons industry. Millions plowed into it.
It's such a sort of cynical way to do it because by drip feeding the weaponry instead of giving Ukraine
people are still dying.
People are dying on both sides. It's horrible loss of life.
We need to find a road to peace, and I reckon whatever your views are on Trump, the world is going to be a safer place as a result of it.
I think so.
Just because, and
a funnier place.
Funnier as well. And I saw a video with Donald Trump where he was recounting an interview with the top Afghan, top Taliban guy.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
And he said he was saying he said to the guy, no American soldiers get killed, and just brought out a satellite photo of the guy's house.
Yeah, the perfect.
Just left the room. There wasn't an American troop. American troops were killed for 18 months. It was amazing.
Wonderful.
World's a safer place.
It's safe to assume that Kamala Harris supporters also support mass illegal immigration, as that's pretty much the only thing she achieved as border czar. So some cheeky wags have filmed themselves turning up at houses with Kamala Harris signs, pretending to have migrants to be housed with them, and they're getting a predictable reaction. Take a look at this.
Dressed up like I work for Kamala's campaign, and now I'm going to deliver immigrants to her supporters.
There wasn't an American troop. American troops were killed for 18 months. It was amazing.
Wonderful.
World's a safer place.
It's safe to assume that Kamala Harris supporters also support mass illegal immigration, as that's pretty much the only thing she achieved as border czar. So some cheeky wags have filmed themselves turning up at houses with Kamala Harris signs, pretending to have migrants to be housed with them, and they're getting a predictable reaction. Take a look at this.
I dressed up like I work for Kamala's campaign, and now I'm going to deliver immigrants to her supporters.
We are voting for you, don't worry.
Are you? Of course. We do have a surprise, if that's okay, just real fast.
You have a surprise?
We're looking for a place for them to stay. They just came across. They'll sleep on floors. I mean, they're not picky, you know.
We have like a 2-year-old, so
Hector's good with kids.
sorry, we just can't.
Could they just like sleep on your lawn?
They need a place to stay. They just came across.
My teenagers live with me.
Oh, that's fine. Hector, he was dating a teenager like a little bit ago, so.
Okay.
Because one of the big complaints about Trump is like, he's going to send illegal immigrants back. But it's like, yeah, they're illegal.
Yeah, and that's the point. And sometimes people, they're a bit lazy in their journalism because they talk about, say, oh, it's going to be migrants being sent. Well, no, it's not.
Yeah.
No, it's not migrants. It's illegal migrants. It's people who haven't gone through the process working on that basis. And he's also said that actually there's no limit on what the cost is going to be. So they're going to start off with people who've been convicted of murder, and there's a certain number of those. They know where they are. They're going to spread it. It's a good start, good starting point. And then other crimes and so on and so forth, and whittle down. So anybody, it's a good thing. He says protect the borders. Immigration was what all the polls around the world have been working on that sort of basis, including in this country. We need to have a very strong policy, and we should learn from Trump.
People just don't think about it. You say, oh, let's get rid of the illegal immigrants, and some middle-class person who doesn't read the news or anything will just think, oh, but my friend's from another country. And you're like, well, it's complete. It's not the same in any way. Like, what is wrong with you? And also, well, my friend's Albanian. Well, we're not talking about your friend.
Yeah, and also, like it's virtue signalling. So the person saying we should have open borders gets all the virtue points of saying we should have open borders, but the cost of that is burdened on. It's spread out across society. It's socialised.
And we must. I emphasise the point again because I saw so many reports saying it's about migrants being deported. It's not. It's the illegal ones who don't follow the process. We need migrants to make the economy run.
It's always the people that don't live in these areas where they're going to be flooded. It's always those sort of people.
But we don't need migrants to make the economy run. That's nonsense, because what happens when we run out of migrants, when the people in the world, we run out of people to bring into the UK, what we need to do is invest. We need capital investment in tech and productivity. We need to build robots.
But there's a talent. The reality, there was a great sort of thing on the internet as well, which went around. Actually, the migrant is more likely to be the doctor seeing you than the person protecting it. There's a skills shortage in certain things that we need to bring proper migrants. Do it the legal route, however. Yeah. And that's what we need to do.
That's what the government isn't doing. They're bringing in guys with Kalashnikovs tattooed on their face, and I don't know. I just feel like it's virtue signalling.
I think what we need to do is raise the minimum wage, get British people back to work, and then all these things of like, oh, well, migrants come and do the work that no one wants to do. Well, that's not fair on them either. Yeah. To come in and do work for less
it's
pay.
A balance. I always like to be balanced in this sort of thing. Yeah. But let's focus on the illegal ones first, and the illegal migrants needs to stop. But you also need to look at the gangs, and it was good to see some reports now. They're starting to crack down on those gangs, because that's the thing.
I thought Keir Starmer had smashed the gang.
Well, no,
that was just in the campaign.
Oh, okay.
Going to do it anyway. Up next, it's Mark Dolan tonight. What have you got for us this evening, Mark?
Brilliant show, Leo. Lovely job. We pick up the baton at 9 o'clock. And actually, it's very exciting because there's a developing story. The new president-elect of the United States has told Sir Keir Starmer that you'll always have a friend in me. So should the Prime Minister dump the EU and hop into bed with Donald Trump? Plus, in my big opinion, why I think we need a Trump-style revolution here, and I'll be explaining how we make it happen.
Couldn't agree more, Mark, and I can't wait to see how you're going to do it. And a post-Brexit trade deal with America, that could save us. That would be amazing. Anyway, thanks to my brilliant panel tonight. We've had Andrew Eborn and Ben Adams. Do check them out on the internet, and we'll see you again next week. And don't forget, headliners as well tonight at 11 p.m. Goodbye. And discussing all tonight's topics with me are my brilliant panel. Joining me tonight are comedian and producer Ben Adams and the broadcaster, lawyer, futurist and children's entertainer Andrew Eborn. Look at him there, bringing a bit of Vegas. He's available for Christmas parties, bar mitzvahs, Ramadan. He'll do anything for money.